Well, welcome to the Perth Mates podcast. A very good friend of mine is joining us today, Adam Parry. Mate, thank you very much for coming in.
It is an absolute pleasure, and it's great to see you, man.
It's been a while, hasn't it? What have you been doing?
What have I been doing? I am always doing something, Robbie. I'm working full-time doing IT. Yeah, which is a hilarious joke 'cause I'm terrible with computers. I'm still podcasting. I'm still announcing wrestling and fight events, and I'm also going to be commentating the NBL 1 in the up-and-coming season too. So that's pretty exciting as well. Do you follow much basketball?
You're a busy boy. I haven't actually followed much of the NBL 1, but one thing I did do last year was fill in for a couple of times for the Mandurah Magic, and I was their ground announcer, their court announcer.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
I have to admit, I didn't really know what the hell I was doing. I just rocked up and just started saying things like defense.
You're essentially the hype man.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd be calling the sport calling the play-by-play and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, this will be my third season of doing that. Good crew, great. It's almost like being a part of a sports club, although you're part of all of them. So,
So do you commentate for one particular team? Like, is that your go-to, or is it just whoever you get on the day?
it's kind of whoever you get on the day, but in saying that you can nominate who. So I nominated the East Perth Eagles because they play at Herb Graham in Mirrabooka, which of course is
perfect.
like really close to where I live, where I grew up, and I even worked at Herb Graham for a while. So I was kind of like, the old stomping ground.
Makes sense.
But yeah, funnily enough, last season I probably called more for like Perry Lakes and Warwick than I did for the East Perth Eagles. But I'll go wherever they want me to.
Cool. And I'm right in saying that that's on KO?
The game of the week's on KO. Otherwise, you can go to the NBL app, just the regular NBL app.
Yeah.
Or nbl1.com.au/west, if I remember from last year.
Yeah, right. Well done. Very well
Thanks,
done.
man. Just it's in there somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure they'll be very happy with you for just giving that plug on this podcast where about 5 people listen to. So what about with NBL 1? We're going to talk about wrestling today,
Yeah,
but
sure, buddy.
now you've got us on this.
Yeah.
To get the KO game, which is probably the number 1 ranked game, is there a bit of hustle and bustle? Like, are you fighting between the other announcers?
I like to think we are, but there's no real sort of verbal line of communication that I can sort of hang a bit of sass on someone and tell them that I'm better than them. So I don't usually know until the rosters come out. I'm like, okay, yep, nope, not this week, maybe next week. So yeah, it just kind of rolls. I will say I have seen a couple of people pop up more often than others, so you kind of get to know who's the ones that are better than the others.
The top dogs.
Yeah, and then at the end of the season they have the nationals. So because there's NBL 1 West, there's NBL 1 South and Victoria and all that sort of stuff. So the winners of the grand final of each sort of state, so to speak, they play off in a competition at the end of the year.
Oh, and where is that held? Is that like Sydney or Melbourne or something?
It was in
rotates?
Melbourne so obviously 2020 it didn't happen because of COVID.
Yeah.
So 2021 it didn't happen because of COVID. Sorry. 2022 it happened in Melbourne, so I think it's going to bounce around.
Cool.
But I imagine Sydney and Melbourne will be where it's at. I didn't get to go last year. You could volunteer to go. I wasn't available, but I'm definitely keen to put my hand up this year.
Bad not to. That's really cool.
Yeah. And WA did really well. So
did they? So which so is it the winner of WA? So like I worked at the Mandurah Magic. Could they have made it?
I think Joondalup took it out last year. No,
right.
No, Warwick took it out. Jeez, I should know this.
Come on, mate.
I've just undone all my good work. It's been a while since the end of last season.
The new season's coming up. You got to get up to scratch with all of this.
I've got a couple of weeks to prep.
When does the season start? It's a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's I think it's the last weekend of March. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Because I think the Adelaide one starts this weekend. So yeah, I've got a bit of time because I got a bit antsy because I didn't hear anything. I was like, "What? The season's starting?" But no, it's one of the other states. So yeah,
gotcha. So does that usually just go Saturday nights? The 2 times I worked, it was Saturday.
Okay, no, it's Friday nights, Saturday nights, and sometimes Sunday arvos as well.
Oh, cool.
I've worked across either of them, and it's all good. A lot of the times you'll do like the women's game and then the men's game.
Yep.
And I tell you what, the women's games are incredible. Mate, they go hard.
Yeah. Like the
Bro.
footy.
Yeah,
they go
man,
hard.
they dig in. Like, yeah, it's actually awesome to see. A lot of the times I enjoy watching the women's games, like more than the men's, which, sometimes I hate it that people are quick to sort of brush off the women's aspect of sports, but man, there's some amazing athletes, not just on the women's but on the men's side as well, and it just sort of blows my mind sort of how hard they go at it too. And you get a good mix as well, because you get people that are like either from the country or people that are international that are sort of trying to get into like the actual NBL itself and stuff like that. So it's really competitive and really cool.
That's what I noticed as well in the women's and the men's when I did the court announcing, is that the Americans that came in were all awesome.
Yeah.
Like, they were just great players.
Man, there are some absolute weapons out there, and it's great to see. Like, I mean, much like yourself, Robbie, and you and I have spoken over the years about like our love of sports and all sorts of different sports. Like,
Yeah.
it's just good to be a part of, you know what I mean? Like, I've done the wrestling thing for like literally years, I've done commentary for like Muay Thai and combat sports and stuff like that. But like calling like an actual team sport and stuff like that, it's just so cool, man. Like, it's also great because I get to sit down and I'm not I'm not doing anything physical.
Down.
Yeah, like it's being a part of like a team sport without actually having to play, because I suck at sports. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm fully on board with that theory.
Yeah, man.
Oh, that's so good. The main thing I wanted to speak to you about today was the wrestling, but it's good that we're chatting about the NBL 1.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting stuff. And I'd forgotten that you've done a lot of stuff for the wrestling and everything as well.
Yeah,
so you're quite an accomplished sportsman, really, aren't you? Sports commentary man.
It's kind of becoming that way, and I've lent into it a lot more because obviously yourself and I met through radio.
Yeah.
And radio was actually I did before any of this, and it's kind of like since doing this, I've found that I enjoy doing this sort of live action calling. Like radio, obviously you know what you're talking about, and a lot of it's on the fly as well. But I guess with commentary as well, you've got to be so in the moment and so on the ball, and you almost don't have time to think.
Yep.
And that's kind of the fun of it, you know what I mean? Like you're in it, you're doing it, and just got to call it as you're seeing it, as well as sometimes you can't hide your reactions, for better or worse.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Like,
and in an exciting play, that'd be great.
Yeah, exactly, and that's how you get some really good calls. And obviously, one of the cool things about the NBL 1 is that a lot of the times you're with completely different people who you're calling with.
Yeah.
And obviously your co-host, for lack of a better term, Robbie, it can really change how you work yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes you click really well with people. Sometimes it's a little bit of a sort of a bit of a, you kind of can butt heads or talk over each other a bit too much. And then, by the second half, you're sort of really clicking, things like that. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of like a sport unto itself, I guess, in a lame way to say.
100%. And if like footy coverage, for example, do you take turns? Like, so do you sort of go 2 minutes of calling and then you'll go, all right, Adam, over to you? Like, is that how it works, or do you jump in over each other?
So basically, myself and the other people in my position, and I've got a couple of mates involved in it now too, which is great as well, because I got to call a couple of games with one of my good mates who I did the wrestling with last year.
Oh, great!
Fantastic. We absolutely just destroyed because we have the chemistry together. But it's more so like if you're doing the play-by-play, you're the leader, you're the anchor, basically.
Right.
And the other person calling with you is usually supplied by the home team, and they'll be more your special comments and have more in-depth analysis. You know what I mean? So I'll be calling the players, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, so Robbie over here, he cut his teeth playing over here and rah, and, just pass it to so-and-so who has come over from Europe, and they've got this, that, and the other, things like that. So, yeah, it's the difference between your sort of your main basic, like, but I do a lot of prep and sort of homework or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas the other person knows more ins and outs, more so than me, just sort of like stats and simple sort of things that anyone can look up.
Gotcha. So they'd be like, yeah, so you can see by the form of his jump shot tonight that he's sort of off to the left, which means he might be a bit tired, or there could be an injury to his left calf or something along those lines.
Yeah, except they're not American. But yeah, so it's cool that they can be a bit deeper. They can give you a lot of really cool inside information that you wouldn't know, and they obviously are usually quite familiar with a lot of the players too. So, and a lot of them sort of take the piss as well, because they sort of are mates with them and stuff, and they'll wind them up, and little things like that can make it fun as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool, man. It's I dig it.
That's awesome. And how do you go with names as far as your commentating? Do you know everybody, or is it a bit of smoke and mirrors?
No, well, I do prep. So I try and get a list of the players, and I'll sort sort of take notes of who's been sort of having some good games and things like that.
Yeah.
And then the hardest thing will be you get a few tongue twisters. So you get a few names that are a bit sort of tricky to say.
Yeah.
And you're sort of unsure and you ask a couple of people. I've had a couple of cases where I'm like, so how do you say this one? And I've gotten 2 different pronunciations.
Yeah.
So I've lent on my co-host and whatever they've gone with, I've ran
Which
with.
one?
So yeah. But no, you can usually make it work. The thing is as well is that you can obviously, you'd find out the best. But basketball also moves at a reasonable enough pace that if you need to, you can kind of like quickly flick there's a camera that can kind of, you quickly flick your eyes down and check the sheet if you need to try to remember who number 5 is. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
It's like I've really wanted to have a crack at football, but there's so many people on the ground at once, and there's just so many, like, it moves so quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas basketball, you've got like maximum of 10 on the court, and it moves a lot slower than the game of football. Like, like you're
100%. Yeah.
Like we love footy. If we were to chuck on a game of footy, we could just be like, oh, he passes it, he kicks it, Mark, great tackle, without actually mentioning anyone's names. We'd kill it. But you got to know the names.
100%. And it'd be fine if we were calling AFL, for example, because we know all the names. But if you jumped into a waffle game with just a week's notice or whatever, you'd probably be stuffed.
It would be tough. And I remember one of our co-workers used to do stats. And
James Cole. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So he was doing stats work, and I said to him, "How the hell do you remember it?" And he was just like, "Yeah, he gets his wife to quiz him, and he does all these different things." It's just you just got to know your stuff.
Like, it is actually also interesting, the stats stuff and the basketball stuff. So I'm glad we actually delved into that a little bit, mate.
Yeah, I'm getting quietly excited for the upcoming season. I just keep reminding myself that it's coming up. I'm in this weird age now where, like, time blurs into itself and I never know what's happening when. And I'm like, oh, God, I've got to do... I was supposed to be doing some wrestling-related thing next Saturday, but it's the first free or home game of the year. So I'm like... Sorry, guys, I'm going to the footy.
Too bad, too sad. Yeah. It's funny that, isn't it? I get in trouble with Lance, my wife, all the time because I always double book stuff. Like, I'll agree to do something. Like, you'll say to me, you want to go for beers next Saturday? Yep, 100%.
Sure.
But I don't tell her. I don't put it in the diary. And then she books something for us because I haven't told her that I'm doing something. And it's just it's a cycle for me. So
yeah, and you being a good husband, you then cancel your plans and do what your wife tells you.
Exactly right. Yeah, 9 times out of 10.
Exactly. And big hello to Lance if you're listening.
Hello, Lance. I bet you won't listen.
She's heard enough of my voice for a very long time.
Well, I think it's probably more me related. She's probably be stoked to hear from you.
Yes.
Hey, mate, lovely. I just want to try a new little thing on this pod today.
Sure.
We sort of got into the basketball, so it's a bit later than what I was planning. Like, I was thinking start of the show, but that's all right. Like, as I've sort of said about this pod the whole time, it's a moving beast. It's a learning experience. There's no rules. So.
See where it takes you, mate.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
As a seasoned podcaster, you'd know that.
I do, actually. Things can get well away ahead of you than they need to, and sometimes you can sidebar into something that can be the funniest thing or the most like, what are we doing thing ever. Yeah.
which should be a good thing, I suppose.
Yeah, sure.
It's always good. We're always going to sidebar to funny.
Of course. Exactly.
I think so, anyway.
Yeah, we're hilarious.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to find out your Perth go-tos, and this is pretty quick fire.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm just going to throw a few things at you. Just throw it back. Tell me what you reckon.
All right, what do we got?
Go to, as far as a pub goes, what's your Perth go-to pub?
I often go to the varsities because I'm obviously usually watching sport with mates. It's usually quite central. I'm 42 now, so I've got, God, I hate saying that. You get people with families and stuff like that. So something like a varsity, good food, good beer, and sport to watch.
And $5 cheeseburgers on Wednesdays,
mate,
which is great.
Look, we were at the Inaloo one last night and got a couple of those before we went to a movie, so there you go.
Boom, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, Shazam.
No, we went and saw that 65. It was very forgettable.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
Weird dinosaur movie from the future.
Oh.
Yeah, we've gone way long for rapid fire.
Yeah, well, and it also crosses out my cheap eats question because we'll just say varsity $5 cheeseburgers,
yeah.
eh?
I also used to host quizzes at varsity, so like you should go into one and know someone there. So yeah.
Favourite quiz night?
Ducks Nuts quiz.
Oh, not varsity. Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, Ducks Nuts runs it at varsity.
Oh, that's who you worked for, of course.
Yeah. So my former boss can now buy me a beer.
All right. What about from pubs to night out? Like if you're actually hitting the tiles.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't do it as much as I used to be honest. I'm
Neither.
sort of showing my age.
This is 40.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Because I like sort of like rock music and, you know, sort of loud music and stuff, I'll go to like Amps or go to like Lucy's Love Shack or Joe's Juice Joint, occasionally Magnet House, but that just makes me feel so bloody old.
It really would.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I can't bring myself to go there anymore.
Yeah, look, it's great, but yeah, I definitely kind of feel like a grandpa when I go there.
Yeah, I always
Good
feel
fun, though.
like I don't look too old. Like I'm 40 now as well. And I think, oh, I look all right for 40. But then you go somewhere like Magnet House and you go, oh, nah, actually, I look old.
Yeah, my ankles aren't showing.
Yes, so true. Fucking ankles showing.
God.
God damn it. All right, mate. You've got some family coming into town. What are you going to say is the tourist hotspot? Where should they go and see?
Okay, I always think the beaches are obviously one you gotta put on the list, right?
Yes.
Perth's well known for its beaches. I always like to take people to like Hillary's like boat harbour, Sorrento Key type thing.
Yeah, good call.
It's kind of unique that people don't usually have a lot of wherever they may live elsewhere in the world.
It's a good call.
It's on the water. You've got a great view of the ocean as well as the sand, and there's plenty of places to eat and you know, pubs and stuff like that too. Sometimes I'll go to places like around Elizabeth Quay sort of area.
Gotcha.
Especially now there's Milky Lane, which is some really good food there. Yeah,
I've never been there. No, never been to Milky Lane.
Mate, prepare to roll out if you go because the food is tremendous and very filling.
Really? Is it burgers and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
it's kind of like your American sort of like big dirty burgers and like I've heard they do deep fried Viennetta and I need to have this before I die.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Viennetta. I'd forgotten about Viennetta.
Yeah, man, deep fried though. Yes.
Yeah, it's like deep fried Mars bar.
Yeah. In theory, you think I'm gonna die, but then you kind of think afterwards, I think it was worth it.
Oh, that's gold. All right, cool. So Elizabeth Quay, I'd agree with that too. The other one I'd throw out there at Elizabeth Quay, if you go to, it's called the Hilton Doubletree. They've got a restaurant. I think it's on level 18. I think it's actually called 18 Degrees or something. And it's got like a full circle view of the city.
Oh, perfect.
It's great. You see South Perth, you see the park, and you see the city skyline.
Yeah, I mean, Kings Park's always a good one too. Depending what your family's into. Like, you know, I've had friends come over from like over east and all they want to do is like hit up different pubs and get drunk and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, sweet, plenty of that to do as well. But if you want more of an experience of Perth, like, you know, there's a lot of cool little spots to hit up. Like, you always take someone down to Fremantle and there's so much to do down there.
Hell yeah. The cultural experience.
Exactly. Everyone loves seeing the Bon Scott statue.
So true. So true. Do you know they're doing something with that this year? They're doing a Highway to Hell in Freo.
Yeah, I heard something about that. Yeah. As in, I saw it and then didn't read it. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Same, but I know they're doing it, so that's good.
Yeah, no, it's actually it sounds really cool from the picture I saw.
Yes. Who would you say is the most famous West Aussie?
Nat Fife.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm
Nat
just spruiking Freo, that's all, man.
Nat. Yeah, fair call. Well, that's interesting because my next question, Eagles or Dockers?
Oh, free all the way. I got the hat on, as you can see. You've known me for a long time, Rob, but for those that don't know me, I'm a Fremantle tragic.
I
was on board from the very first season, been a member from the first season. I've got an anchor tattooed on my arm. I've suffered for a very long time, Robbie.
That you have.
Yeah. One day it's gonna pay off and just be tremendous.
It could be this year. It could be this year.
Man, if only. I just keep saying to everyone, I'm like, I cannot die until I see us win a flag. It's like the biggest thing on my bucket list. It's one thing I need to see is us win a premiership. But you know, there's been some fun seasons in the past and some amazing moments, but I haven't quite gotten to the very tippy top yet. But I was there in 2013. We made our first grand final, so that was pretty cool.
You were actually at the game.
Yeah, I was at the game. Did
How
the walk
good's that?
from Fed Square and all that sort of stuff with my brother. My brother and I go to all the games together, so it's kind of like the one thing we like really bond over heavily as well. So wouldn't seem half as much if we weren't both Freo members, so it works out well.
Don't catch up over summer then, obviously.
Try not to.
So you mentioned your Freo tattoo. Have you just got one or have you got a couple?
Just
you got a
got
lot of
the
tats.
anchor. I thought, you know, the logos can change. The anchor will always be part of Fremantle. So just got that one. Yeah, one, you know. God, any excuse. I'll probably end up getting another, let's be honest. I'm pretty easily led.
Before we move on then, I got to ask about your beard. Beard goatee, do we call it?
Yeah. It's
Since
a goatee.
I've known you, you've had that, right?
Yeah.
And it's quite long. Like I would say it's probably 50 to 60 centimeters.
It probably is, yeah. I just haven't cut it for about maybe 8 years now.
8 years.
Yeah, because I had a job and they told me that I had to cut it off, and it was getting pretty long then. And I was like, oh, okay, sure, I need work.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I grew it back, and then I stopped working there. So I was just like, stuff it. I'm just going to grow it, and I haven't stopped yet. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I keep thinking about cutting it, then I'm like, oh, but I've put so much time into it. So much time by not cutting it and doing absolutely nothing, but yeah.
But you got to shave around it and everything.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that would
definitely.
take work.
Yeah.
And do you trim it at all? Like, do you trim the bottom? Or
I used
or
to.
is that full
I
growth?
haven't done that. No, I've cut it maybe 3 or 4 times over the years, but it's been a long time since I've even done that. I probably should. It's getting a bit ratty at the end there, so it's just so dumb.
But it's such a trademark because I've seen you have birthday parties and people have actually dressed up like you, and it's easy to do because who else has that? Everyone knows it's you.
Yeah, that's actually really funny. It's really funny when that did happen as well. Yeah, I actually went to Bali last year for a mate's 40th, and one of my mates couldn't get over the fact that like all the locals, every time I walk past someone, they'd like try and grab it or talk to me about it or something like that. It was like this real focal point. I'm just kind of like, oh, whatever. Like,
That's so funny.
yeah, it's weird. I'm a strange man when it comes to dumb shit like this.
Never let it go. Never let it go. Like that has to be your trademark till
That's
the
what
day you
someone said,
die.
and I was like, yeah, I think I'm ready to move on, and they're like, no, you can't.
Nah.
I'm like, okay, all right.
Or at least until Freo win a flag. One of the two.
There you go. I'll be like 90 and it'll be wrapping up in my feet. I'll dye it purple.
I'd like to see that actually.
Yeah. Not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah, you should do it.
Yeah.
You should do it. If they make the granny, I want to see a purple goatee. Do you call it goatee or beard?
I call it a goatee, yeah.
Goatee, yep.
Yeah.
Cool,
yeah.
cool.
I feel
Just want to get
beard's
that right.
Full face, right? Surely.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I figure when it's longer, it's crosses over to beard territory.
Maybe, I don't know. I've never looked too deeply into it.
Yeah.
You know, there's people that go like just froth the beards and they're all right into it and they style them and do all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, man, metal, long beard,
Hey.
goatee, whatever, cool.
Love
Like,
it.
pretty basic.
I love that. I love that. So let's talk about EPW because it's something I don't know a lot about, but I see that you do a lot of it. Dean
Well,
Olsen, is this your name?
Dean Olsen's my pseudonym when I commentate for EPW, which is Explosive Pro Wrestling. If you've not heard of it before, the longest running wrestling promotion in Perth, Western Australia, started up in 2001. Just last month was 16 years since I joined them. So I've been, it's very interesting now because I'm somewhat of an elder statesman amongst the crew. So it's it's really cool.
That's awesome. And it's a full subculture in Perth, isn't it?
It really is. And the funny thing is, like, to this day, I'll tell people that I do it, and people are like, oh, I didn't know wrestling was around in Perth. And it has been since 2001. Like, it's like, nearly 22 years worth now.
Yeah.
And it's quite a big thing. They pull decent crowds. There's more than one company in Perth. So it's a weird little subculture of like fandom and people that love it. That like even fans that love wrestling, like say WWE, the American wrestling, may still be oblivious to the fact that it exists within Perth, which still blows my mind. But it's one of those little things that does exist. It has for some time, and I personally love it and think it's really cool, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
How good is that? And we know various people, like there's obviously yourself, Al. And I know there's a couple of others involved that do different things. Like there's wrestlers. Mm-hmm. You're a commentator. Yep. I think Al was a manager at some point.
Yeah,
like they do all the things.
Yeah, Al managed. He was also part of the booking team at one stage. The people that like make the matches and sort of like book who's going to be up against who on the shows and stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah, he did a little bit of that too in his time. Obviously, Al and I go way back. Back to when we were with different companies, and then he ended up joining EPW, which is great.
Oh, controversial.
It's like, we're all mates, man. So it was nothing but love. But he had a really good. He was like a heel manager. So in the world of wrestling, you have your heels, which a heel is a bad guy, and a baby face, which is the good guys.
Babyface are the good guys. I didn't know that. I didn't know that's what they were called.
So the heel's a good guy. This is all like backstage talk lingo within wrestling.
Yeah,
it's not really. They call it kayfabe, but you keep it away from the punters like they did back when people pretended it was real.
Yeah.
Whereas Al was a heel manager. He was like a bad guy, and we're talking like nuclear heat. People used to like constantly boo when he would talk because they hated him so much. Like people hated him passionately. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like he should be very proud of how hated he was. And then he did some other stuff which is really fun and sort of silly, like with the Mexican wrestling masks and stuff. That was really hokey, and they'd come out and like throw Doritos into the crowd, and I'd steal Doritos off him and eat them the entire time I was out there.
That's brilliant. So it's a full show as far as,
Yeah.
you've got certain wrestlers at the time who are the characters the same as what you'd see in WWE. So you have a guy who's the bad guy.
Yeah.
You've got the good guys. They could switch over at any time.
Yep.
And they fully, like, if you get on Facebook, they'll be doing the videos, like,
Yeah,
the guys
I've like
fully
done
getting into character.
Yeah, I've done like the interviews where oh, what are your thoughts on, Robbie Klitzing?
Yeah.
I'll tell you something, this Robbie guy, blah, 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 all that hokey sort of stuff.
So
But
good.
Some of them are quite normal when they do it too, but yeah, all that sort of stuff, mate. Yeah, we're all over. It's epwperth.com is the website, at EPW Perth on all the socials. If you want to check us out, we're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that. Got YouTube as well. So much stuff on YouTube you can see if you're just the slightest bit interested. And yeah, you'll see everything from that. They call them promos when they do the interviews and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Different vignettes, which are like your little filmed things where you'll see them out and about doing whatever the hell wrestlers could be doing that's relevant to their character. And then, yeah, we have our shows that you go see the matches and see where it all pays off and people do their thing.
That's cool. So when you commentate, is that, say, live on YouTube or something? Like, is it live streamed somewhere or can you watch it later?
Not live streamed, although that's something that they have been looking into here and there because live streaming is such a... Oh man, it is an interesting beast.
Yeah, right.
I have commentated live streamed Muay Thai before,
Yeah.
and I've been next to the production guy watching what he does, and I tell you what, I'm glad I'm talking and not doing his gig.
Oh, you're joking?
It's nuts.
Keeping you on air.
Oh man, but they're like sorting out the cameras of which camera to focus on and like all that stuff and throwing to things and tells me when they're going on an ad and this sort of stuff. It's wild.
Yeah, crazy.
But anyway, with wrestling, it gets recorded live.
Yep.
For the production that gets sent out to be watched online.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
My recording of it is done as it's happening.
Yeah.
Which you get the best reaction that way. But it'll be for when the video has been edited in post and put together and put out.
Oh, cool. And can anyone watch that, or is it like a subscription thing where you got to pay for it?
We have a Vimeo where you can pay to see events in full, but then we'll also drop some stuff on YouTube. So it often changes. Some things will go straight to YouTube, full shows. Sometimes it'll just be a match or two.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit of both really.
That's cool. And so there's a couple of different companies. Will you kind of like fight against each other and bring each other into your storylines?
No, we kind of stick to ourselves.
Yeah.
EPW recently bought out a pre-existing company as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting because as much as sometimes you can kind of there can be a bit of a rivalry. A lot of the guys wrestle for the same people anyway.
Yeah.
So like it's like at the moment one of the other company's main champions is a guy who was just a tag team champion with us. You know what I mean? So
so they jump between.
Yeah. It's kind of I guess you could say freelancing.
Yeah, fair call.
Yeah, it's such a weird little world, though. I tell you, it's trying to explain it to someone that's never experienced it or know what it is. It just people would probably just think it's crazy.
I'm gonna have to come along and have a watch sometime.
Would
Where
love
do
to
you
have
do
you,
it?
man.
Like, is it always the same place, or do you rotate locations?
Obviously doing this for many years, the home base has changed a lot, and at the moment we're bouncing around a bunch. For the last several years, we were down at the Gate 1 Theatre at Claremont Showgrounds, but we're no longer there. We've been bouncing between Freo Social, was where we did our last one, in Fremantle.
Oh, yeah. Is that a pub?
Yeah, it used to be the Flyby Night.
Yeah, right.
Showing our age.
Bloody hell.
So Freo Social, we've done a bunch of shows over the last year and a half, and we've also been at a venue down in Merriwa, so far south, far north, which is interesting because if you know Perth like we do, northies don't like going south and southies don't like going north.
Yeah.
But so we've been bouncing between those two. Our biggest show of the year is always a show called Reawakening, which is our last EPW show of the year.
Okay, cool.
And our biggest one of 2022 was at the Willerton Basketball Stadium, which is a big stadium. We pulled 800 people. It was huge, man. It was so cool too. Just like we had such a huge crowd, the biggest crowd in years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was so good, man.
How many events a year do you do?
Ooh, that varies. If I had to guess and roughly say, because it can change, we'd probably do like maybe 8 big shows a year.
Okay, cool.
But we also do showcases at the training facility as well, which is sort of smaller, low key, a lot less production, and a lot of the sort of up and comers and even some trainees can sort of cut their teeth there and put on a show and stuff like that. I'll be involved in a lot of those as well.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, it's different levels to it, I guess. So yeah.
There's been a few guys that have actually started off in Perth, right? And they've gone on to bigger things, like they've gone to America and joined is it TNT or
Oh,
WWE in that?
WWE, yeah. There's
Yeah.
WWE. There's Impact Wrestling in America. There's AEW. A bunch of people from Melbourne and Sydney and South Australia as well. They've moved on and done stuff over there as well. A couple of our guys, they were in WWE tag teaming for a while. And
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, good mates of mine, and they're cracking blokes as well. A lot of fun to get on the sauce with as well. But they are now doing wrestling in Japan as well. Wrestling. This is another.
Is it big in Japan?
It is huge, man. Like,
yeah, right.
It's another one of those things that if people who are oblivious to it would just kind of think, oh, Japanese wrestling. A lot of times, like I've flown to Japan before and like predominantly to watch wrestling.
Really?
Yeah, and I told people like, oh, like sumo, and you're like, no, it's like the pro wrestling.
Wow.
It's very different over there. They cover it in the sports section of the newspaper.
Oh.
And it's treated like an actual sport.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's really well respected. Like, it's weird in Japan, wrestling, well, pro wrestling as it's called, is it's viewed as like a sport in Japan. You know,
Yeah.
It's almost like a religion in Mexico. Huge in Mexico, man. And in like America.
Oh, I did know that. Yeah.
The masks and everything. It's a massive
Rey
cultural thing.
Mysterio and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Whereas I guess like in America and more Western cultures, it's kind of like a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
But
a very big money making joke.
Yeah. It's huge in Japan though, and there's so much of it, and that's probably my preferred style. I love the Japanese wrestling. They belt the crap out of each other.
Oh, that's so
It's
cool.
awesome. I'll send you some clips, man. It's wild.
Okay, I'll need to have a look. Did the Beast, Dennis Cometti's son, did he go through you guys?
No, he went through one of the other companies.
Yeah.
And he was doing a bunch of stuff on the indies over in America.
Yeah, right.
He's like humongous. Have you ever met him?
I've never met him. He actually does our stats on Triple M Footy, right?
Oh, wow.
And I've never actually met him in person. I've just heard him quite a lot, and he sounds like Cometti.
Yeah. I've not met him in person, but I've seen him at shows, and compared to other guys that I do know, the guy is humongous. He's a giant.
So the Beast is an appropriate name?
Dude is just jacked, man. It's wild. Yeah.
Just wild. And he's actually on Young Rock? He's like on TV shows and movies.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised when you look like that. Why not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm like short and got nothing to me. You know, like these guys are like tall and like the size of a house. It's like, man, go nuts. Why not?
Are these guys fully amateur, or do they make money or even make a living out of the Perth stuff?
Look, you're not. I don't think you're gonna. No one's paying the rent off doing like pro wrestling in Perth. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You can get different levels of money through it, but things like if you to get to WWE, which is such a tough task. Like you've got to be so good. Like if you're, it's kind of like I guess like making like the NBA, you know what I mean? Like you have to be so good just to be the worst guy in that company, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And but they obviously WWE would be the best paying, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. There's also AEW in America now, and Impact as well, probably the third biggest in the States. Those would be places where you get bigger paychecks. Obviously, some of the companies in Japan pay well, so it's much like I guess any real workforce. You have your different levels to it, you know what I mean? Like you have your big ones, and then you have your sort of middle of the range ones, and you get your sort of lower ones. So
cool.
It's just like I guess any other form of entertainment industry, really.
Have you ever done any of the wrestling stuff yourself, or have you always been commentating and behind the scenes?
Oh, look, the first time I ever got involved in commentating wrestling, I was like doing backyard wrestling with a bunch of my mates.
Yeah,
so
right.
I would get in there and have a crack then, but I pretty much just wanted to commentate.
Yeah.
So I recently, this is how long back it's been going. I'd been doing radio for a couple of years, and my sister-in-law's brother was doing this backyard wrestling.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, you lot, because I'm just like a massive wrestling fan. Like, you should get involved.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I don't want to wrestle. I don't want to do anything that involves like fitness and exercise. I'm like, but I can talk. I'm starting doing radio, you know. So I was like, oh, I'll have a crack at commentating. I sort of did that, and I'd go there and help out and all that sort of stuff. And so I did a little bit then, and it was a bit of fun, but it wasn't something I was great at. You know what I mean? The one thing I always said going into it is, I'm like, what can you offer the world of pro wrestling? And I'm like, the last thing they need is some short guy with no build who, is like not going to offer anything. I'm like, but I can talk well. I know the stuff really well. Like I really, really know my stuff that I'm talking about. So I was like, I could have something to offer in that realm. And then basically that led to EPW, because after doing that as long as we did, the group that we were doing it with kind of disbanded. I was kind of like, you know what, I wonder if I'd be good enough to hang with the big guys, you know what I mean? EPW is the biggest company in Perth, and I thought, I want to have a crack at this. I want to see if I can actually, do it properly.
Yeah.
And here we are 16 years later, Robbie.
Great. It's a great way to look at it as well.
Yeah.
Go like, that's probably not for me, but I can do this.
Yeah.
I guess that's how people become umpires in the AFL.
I guess.
But you're probably more liked.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
the umpires.
People love booing the referees in wrestling too. That's the thing, and I say this to a lot of people that train as well, because people come down and I've seen so many over the years people come and want to train to be a wrestler, and it's not for everyone, you know what I mean? But for everyone that doesn't want to wrestle, there's people that end up doing production or refereeing, or just there's so many multifacets to it that make it all work.
Yeah.
That you don't have to be in there taking bumps and bloody hurting yourself, or even having to stay in good shape.
Yeah.
There's a theme of laziness in my life, Robbie.
I like this.
Yeah.
And I can concur with you as well. I'm a lazy bastard myself.
Yeah, look, I'll force myself to exercise and go to the gym, but I don't like it.
I'll do it, but I won't like
Yes,
it.
I'll do it very reluctantly.
Speaking of which, so when you watch wrestling like WWE, for example, and I've always heard people say this, it's fake, it's blah, 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 blah. And yes, the storylines are. We can all agree on that. But the actual wrestling itself, they're doing all these moves and they're like jumping off big shit. They're smacking each other. They're doing all these things. So, but they're getting paid a lot of money to do it. So like here in Perth locally, how hard are they going at each other, or what moves are they pulling off?
Mate, they're doing it all.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're not holding back.
So they're watching TV and going, I want to do that. And they're...
Man, they want to do more than that.
Yeah, right.
So, and that's the cool thing about it. You got to come down to see these shows, because it's one of the guys who I used to work with within the wrestling said it's the most uniquely interactive form of entertainment you could possibly go to.
Yeah.
Like, you can go there and boo the hell out of someone just because, I don't know, you don't like their haircut. Or, like, you can, like, cheer someone you like, or, like, get involved and, help. Because they'll, sort of talk, yell at the crowd if they're a bad guy and stuff like that. But the people involved that do the wrestling and do the moves, they want to do the most over-the-top stuff to get the best reactions.
Yeah, right.
And they'll see something crazy happen somewhere else and be like, oh, man, I can do better than that. You know what I mean? So it's, if anything, sometimes, people probably have to try and be held back a little bit rather than going too far.
To save themselves type thing.
Yeah, because everyone wants to do crazy stuff. Everyone wants to be remembered. Everyone wants to, get amongst it.
Do they go through tables, all that sort of stuff?
Mate, so for years, we'd be at ringside when we were at the Vanville Rec Centre, which we no longer do.
Yeah.
Our table would be ringside, and people would go through our announcing table like all the time. Our mixer,
That's awesome.
Our mixer was so banged up, and the production guy'd be ripping his hair out. Same production guy as well. He's been there longer than I have. But yeah, and it was one of those things that if you saw it coming, you'd move out the way, because if they go through the table breaks like on your legs, it bloody hurt.
It would cane.
Yeah.
It would cane. You'd bruise up.
Yeah.
Do they pull out the, and this might be going a bit too far, do they put like barbed wire around bats and hit each other?
Yeah, that sort of stuff.
They do
happens.
that?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think they'd do that.
Yeah, but, oh, God, I've done all sorts of stuff and seen so much over the years. But yeah, barbed wires come into it.
What's the craziest thing you've seen then? Or am I putting you on the spot because there'd be so many?
Well, the craziest thing I've seen was not in EPW.
Okay, yeah. Was this backyard wrestling?
No. So I was a part of this show called Dude, Where's My Ring? And it was a no ring like wrestling show at Badlands. Actually, at Badlands is another pub I like to go to.
Oh yeah, Badlands is good.
Yeah, and so it was deathmatch wrestling, which is a whole nother side of hardcore wrestling. It's
Tell me more.
Ultra-violent wrestling. This thing's just sort of popped up. And I don't know if I'm here supposed to be exclusively talking about EPW or not. I'm allowed to talk about other...
You can talk about what you want. We ain't sponsored. I'm just interested.
Okay, mate. So we did a show, this Dude, Where's My Ring? And it was all like death matches. No ring. So if they get slammed or whatever, it's on literally the floor of the pub.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so it's crazy. It's nuts.
Is the ring a ring of people, like all sort of gathered around? Or?
If you haven't seen Badlands, there's like a little dance floor that's sort of sunken in.
Yeah.
That was the fight pit. And everyone was around it. It was so unique.
That's so good.
I hosted, I commentated, and I ring announced the entire night. I actually had a blast doing it. But anyway, so in ultra-violent death matches, there's light tube, fluorescent light tubes like you've probably got here.
Yeah.
They're smashing each other with them, going through tables. There's a barbed wire ironing board. So there's different levels to wrestling, right? But anyway, to get to the point, there's things called gusset plates. Have you heard of a gusset plate before?
I don't know what it is, but I have heard of one.
Okay, it's
weirdly enough.
I guess it's I'm not a handyman in the slightest, but it's like a when they put wooden foundations and structures together.
Yeah,
they're like a metal plate, like a little rectangular metal plate about yay big, and they've got little hooks on them where they sticks the metal together. Sticks the
Oh,
wood
okay.
together.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So gusset plates, somehow some idiot invented bringing that into wrestling, and they'll put them on tables. So when you get slammed or they like smack them into each other's heads, and the gusset plate sticks into them, and there's like obviously blood goes everywhere.
Are you joking?
Oh, dude, it's nuts, right?
That's
Anyway,
the spikes, right?
Yeah.
Gusset plates. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're like kind of hook spikes. So it'll gash them open because obviously death matches, they're like blood like you wouldn't imagine. Again, I can show you clips. Anyway, there's a deathmatch wrestler from over east called Joel Bateman. He came over for the show.
Yeah.
And I was commentating the match, and he copped a gusset plate to the head.
What?
And this is quite normal fare, though, in deathmatch wrestling, which when I say the word normal, I guess that's out of a completely different realm.
Yeah, but
anyway,
it's their normal.
Yeah, but
Whoa,
he got a
okay.
gusset plate to the head, and when he, like, removed it, his head literally was squirting blood. Like, not just like when, someone gets cut or in a wrestling match, it'll kind of like blood trickles out of your head.
Yeah.
This was like
what the hell? Like a horror movie.
Like a drink fountain, yeah. And I've been doing this for 16 years, Robbie, and I'd never seen anything like it. And whilst I was commentating this match, the thought did cross my mind, am I going to see someone die here tonight?
Wow, that sounds like he actually hit an artery or something.
Yeah, well, one of my friends was in the crowd, and she's a nurse, and she was just like I spoke to her after the fact. And she's like, there's medical staff on site as well, and that. But it rendered me speechless in a world where I'm never usually lost for words, Robbie.
That is unbelievable. Hey, so death wrestling, death match wrestling,
yeah.
How would that compare then to something that's just come out in the last couple of years? I think the UFC or MMA or something run it. The slap matches.
Okay.
Have you seen these?
I've seen a little bit of it in passing. It just seems so strange.
I've just seen clips on Facebook. I've never sat down and watched it.
Yeah.
But these guys cane each other. Like someone is going to die from that or break their neck or something.
Yeah, look, you wouldn't be able to pay me to do it.
Hell no.
Well, the thing is in wrestling, right? Because obviously wrestling's a work, as they say. Like things are set up and they work together to make the moves happen. Still hurts like hell.
Yeah.
They get slammed. You slam anyone on anything, and it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
You whack someone with a chair, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
In wrestling, when they slap each other, they try and aim for, like, the neck or the face. The whole thing is you want to avoid the ear.
Yeah, okay.
You pop an eardrum doing that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and these guys are just giving it what for? Like, just, it's nuts.
Yeah, there's some serious hits in it.
I can understand a bunch of drunk people yelling and cheering for it and having a fun time. Don't get me wrong, if it was coming to Perth, I'd think about buying a ticket, but I haven't actually sat down and watched a full show. I can't imagine what a full show's like. Like, sure you get half an hour and then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that was a good one. Like,
I think it'd be a bit too brutal, to be honest. Like, I've just seen on Facebook the highlights. So, okay, it's the big slap that really wrecks a guy. And I don't think I could watch a whole night of that. Like, it'd be too... It would torment you.
Weird, right? Yeah, like don't get me wrong, I love combat sports. I love boxing. I love MMA and all that sort of stuff. But we actually have a wrestler with us at the moment called Lucas Fantasia.
Okay.
He's
cool name.
Yeah, a great name.
Related
great
to
guy.
Orazio? Orazio Fantasia.
He's actually a Freo fan.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so he's a great bloke. Anyway, he great character as well, cracking bloke. And anyway, he does like a big whopping slap. But he's a small guy.
Yeah, right.
So you see this guy who's like shorter than me, quite a slim build, but he just wallops these people with this slap, and every time gets an amazing reaction. And at our
from
last
the crowd
show,
or from the actual person who he's slapping?
Both.
Yeah,
the person that cops the slap has no choice because you can't fake that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at our last show, he slapped a guy, Bobby Marshall, who's about maybe 6'3", big dude, one of the toughest guys I've seen in wrestling, who's just like a maniac. And yeah, afterwards, like, how'd you go? And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, he explains it like it's kind of like the lights go like boo. Like, and I'm just like, yeah, it's probably
pulling a tooth out.
Yeah,
of
like
his
he's missing
you.
a tooth, so it works well. But yeah, it's yeah, it's wild. I would not want someone to slap me in the face like that.
That's insane.
It's a weird world. But yeah, these death matches, a lot of companies will do death matches in like a wrestling ring.
Yeah.
But the one that I was asked to be involved with, and I was like, this is going to be insane. Sign me up. Yeah, that was no ring, so it's just on the floor.
That is nuts. That is absolutely nuts.
Look, I went to work on Monday and had a lot of cool videos and stories to tell my co-workers. So, yeah, humble brag.
I bet you did. Yeah, that's crazy. I haven't even looked at any of my questions, but there's one more I do want to ask you, actually.
Sure, man. Yeah.
The Dean Olsen Award. What's going on with this? I've seen it pop up on Facebook. Is this something that you sponsor or you buy the trophy or whatever and then you hand it to an up-and-coming ringside announcer, or what's the go?
No, okay, so this is a massive peek behind the curtain, Robbie.
Oh, look out.
So we do our awards every year and the fans vote on the awards of the most improved wrestler. They'll do the wrestler of the year, match of the year, things like that, what I mean? Rookie of the year. And then we have our in-company awards. Okay,
right.
So we do an end of year wind up,
like a best and fairest sort of thing, where you get best clubman,
exactly.
Best wrestler, blah blah blah.
That's a great way to think of it, because we have most improved, we have best wrestler of the year, we have best match of the year, and all that sort of stuff. And one year, unbeknownst to myself, the guy who was running at the time, Nate Dooley, the mate I was telling you off air about, who did sales for West Coast for a while.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Nate Dooley.
Yeah. Big West Coast fan. Yeah. Oh, man, that guy cracks me up. Anyway, so one time we were at the awards and he introduced a new award called the Dean Olsen Award, named after myself.
Love this.
And, I'd had a couple by then, and it was quite emotional. I was not prepared. I did not know how to deal with these emotions, Robbie.
Did you cry? Was there tears?
There wasn't tears. There was more shock and awe.
Yeah, right.
And so basically it was almost like a best clubman kind of award.
That's so good.
And it's named after me. The best thing is I have nothing to do with it. I don't vote it, so it's not like an ego trip for myself.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm sitting here going, old mate over there, we went out on the piss and he paid for my drinks all night, so, he's getting the award.
Which would be a smart way to run things.
To be honest, mate, I'm completely susceptible to bribery. I'll never lie about that. But so it's voted within the board of directors of EPW, and the board themselves. They vote on who is sort of the best club, and the person that may not be the main event of every show, but sort of does all the 1%ers and has really sort of had a good year of being about what EPW is about. They get the Dean Olsen Award. The fact that it's named after me and represents that is so humbling and sometimes difficult to deal with. But every year I'm kind of like, oh, surely they won't do it this year, and they do, and I'm just like, it makes me feel lovely. Just to be acknowledged for my years of service, I guess. And I just love EPW so much. So it's as much of a thrill as it is an honor.
It's highly impressive. So do you present it every year? I know you don't have any say in who wins it, but on the night, presentation night, do you get up there, give a bit of a speech and be like, congratulations, the Dean Olsen Award this year is...
Actually, no, I
Robbie,
don't.
no, you don't.
No, and so,
this is bullshit.
Then it would seem like I'm a part of it, you know what I mean? And I don't want it to seem like I'm picking my favorite or anything like that. I usually present an award at these nights more often than not, because I'm the guy who talks. So
gotcha.
they're like, oh yeah.
Oh,
cool.
so you actually MC the night?
Yeah, well, a lot of times they'll be like, oh, can you do match of the year? I did match of the year. We did it behind time this. We did it a few weeks back, and I did match of the year. Sometimes I'll do wrestler of the year or whatever. So
cool.
they'll just sort of like, hey, can you do this? I'm like, of course, yeah. Go for it. And then depending on how many drinks I have, depends on how good or bad my presentation of it is. Oh,
I'm hearing you. But then you would at least have to introduce the guy who's presenting the Dean Olsen Award.
So
that's not bad.
Do things like that. Man, it's just cool to be a part of.
I reckon it's great. It's awesome.
It's funny. After all these years, I'm still loving it. I was having a chat with Luke Boland.
Is he a comedian? Stand-up comedian?
Yeah, stand-up comedian.
Yeah, okay, cool. Are you mates with him?
He worked in radio for many years. He was the original commentator for EPW, and when I first joined back in 2007, I called for years with Luke.
Oh, there you go.
And he's no longer doing it. And I was chatting to him about just whatever, and he was like, how much longer do you think you're going to do this for?
Mm.
And I was just like, I've never thought of an end date. I've never thought, oh, maybe I'm getting a bit too old, or oh, maybe I'll wrap it up. I'm just sort of like...
You've just always loved it.
I'm still loving it. I don't
That's
want to
great.
stop. If anything, I want to do more.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
It's, I don't know. Maybe there's other people that want me to go. I've said, Dave and Shell, the two people that run EPW, I've said to them many times, I said, look, I'm here till you don't want me anymore.
Yeah, right.
When you come up to me, tap me on the shoulder and say, all right, mate, it's time to move on, I'll take my hat and I'll go. But, until then, man, I'm there with bells on every single time.
The Best Clubman Award is named after you. I don't think they're sending you anywhere anytime soon.
Well, unless I force their hand by doing something incredibly stupid, Robbie, but I endeavour not to.
Hey, even that's good video content these days, so they'll probably appreciate it.
As long as it goes viral.
Mate, this has been a really good chat, and it's been highly educational. I really knew nothing about this subculture of wrestling right here in Perth.
Yeah.
Tons of people get into it. It's great.
And there's always room for more. If you want to come down to a show, even if you're just mildly curious, come down and check it out. If you want to get involved in wrestling, we have our the EPW School of Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, right.
And they do open days a few times a year where you can go and just sort of like trial if it's your kind of thing and you want to get involved.
Cool.
If you ever want to like referee and things like that, there's plenty of room for people that do that, do production, stuff like that as well.
Nice.
But more importantly, just come down and check it out. Like, the funny thing is I've got mates that don't really think much of wrestling in general, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And in my early days, like, they would come down, and a lot of the times at most of the venues you can drink. They come down, they have a few beers, and like, oh man, it's just so much fun. And it's like, well, you wouldn't know unless you're there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you watch it on TV and you kind of remove from the atmosphere. Like, the atmosphere is electric.
Okay,
it's a lot of fun. It's really it's a great time out, and people just have so much fun there. It's awesome. Some people dress up, some people bring signs, some people just sit back and enjoy the carnage and craziness. Like, my mum started going to shows and just loved it.
Oh,
and
that's
like,
great.
Yeah, like, because that was the weird thing growing up. My dad's a big sports guy. He just, he's just like, oh, it's just all bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I got him down to one show once and he thought it was fantastic, but still, he's like, it's all a big put on.
Yeah.
Whereas my stepdad was a massive wrestling fan and a big part of me being a wrestling fan, so he loved it. You know what I mean? So
that's awesome.
Even whilst it's not for everyone, a lot of people come down and they're surprised by how much they enjoy it. And you'll never know unless you go. So come down and check out EPW.
That's so good, because when we worked together at Red FM, which was a good 5 or 6 or 7 years, I always meant to come to a show, and you'd tell me when they were on, and something would always come up, and I never went, but I still want to go to one. So maybe next time you have like a big one,
Yeah.
I think I'll come along.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and I don't hold it against anyone, because similar situations have happened with so many people that I know.
Yeah.
And every time they're like, "Oh man, yeah, sorry, this was on, this was that, I had this on, or it was so and so's wedding." I always say to them the same thing: "It's all right, because there's always going to be another."
Yep,
Yeah.
so true.
Yeah, you miss this one, you can always make the next one.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. I'm going to put it in the diary. I promise you that. I'm not even just like,
oh, good, bro.
I'm
Man,
not talking shit.
I
I
think
there.
you'd have a good time, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll let you know which ones to come to and hook you up with all the details, mate. You know me, we're easy to find each other.
That's very true, mate. That's very true. Dean Olsen on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, God,
Maybe that's not true.
I don't even use that. Do
you have a page?
Yeah, I've got a Dean Olsen Facebook page, but I don't really use it. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just do my own stuff where I can like post silly memes and horror movie stuff and, talk about Fremantle.
Love that.
I should be better on social media with my like in character stuff, but yeah,
Love that. I'd like to say that. I think we need more Dean Olsen in our lives.
Well, I'll endeavour to do more of it just for you, Robbie.
Thank you. Now, one final thing that I've sort of implemented is I always get the last guest to ask a question, and I've recorded it, right?
Okay.
And so Leachy, who works with me at the radio station, is going to ask you a question.
Okay.
You're going to answer it.
Right.
And then you're going to ask a question for the next guest.
Ah, okay.
So I'm putting you on the spot a bit here, and it can be any question you want. It can be a serious question. It can be a smart-ass question. It can be a funny question. The world is your oyster when it comes to this question.
Okay.
All right. So we'll start off by playing Leachy's question.
My question would be the one moment that crystallized in your mind why you love what you do.
And you can relate this to wrestling and commentary if you would like. Leachy's was a serious question.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough to pin it down to like one thing. Actually, I can, and it actually doesn't involve wrestling or any of that, but I actually can pinpoint it down.
Love this.
It's more to just performing,
Okay.
whether it be radio or like I've been in bands before, whether it be with wrestling or anything. When I was 12 years old, this is going back a while because I'm bloody old, I went and saw Metallica.
Oh.
Okay, this is on the Black Album tour in 1993.
You went to the Black Album tour.
No one in my family would take me, and my mum took me. And it blew my mind so much that I like after that gig, I was like, I want to do that. I want to give people this great feeling that I had that night. And I started learning guitar the very next year. But from seeing that, I was like, the performing arts and stuff like that, I just want to be a part of like just some sort of interaction, things that are like that, you know what I mean? Like I was just sort of like, I want to be able to perform in one way or another. And whether it's performing commentary, performing music, or like I host events, I've done ring announcing, all these different things.
Yep.
Just where you get to sort of be on, you know what I mean? And just sort of like go for it and be involved in some sort of entertainment, you know what I mean?
100%. And can I just say, I've never met your mum before, but I bloody love her for taking one for the team and taking you to a Metallica concert. How good is that?
If I may, maybe 3 or 4 tours later, Mum was like, if Metallica ever come back, can you take me? And I took her when they played Burswood Dome on the Death Magnetic Tour, and I got to return the favour and I took my mum to go see Metallica.
That's
and
so good.
It was kind of beautiful.
So, mate, have you got a question for our next guest?
Okay. Mine's going to be simple and silly.
Yes, I like that.
Pineapple on pizza? Yes or no? And say why.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye to you, mate. Thank you very much for coming in today.
Absolute pleasure,
It's been awesome, man.
It's just good to catch up with you, man.
Bloody oath.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. And everyone, check out EPW at EPW Perth on all the socials and YouTube and all the rest. Get amongst it and come on down if you can, because there's nothing quite like it.
Adam Parry, a.k.a. Dean Olsen. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you, brother.